The name Balrog comes from the ancient tongues of the elves, and it carries with it a sense of terror and shadow. In Sindarin, the common tongue of the elves of Middle-earth, Balrog means demon of might, from the words Bal, meaning power, and Rog, demon. In Noldorin, the name was more or less the same, and in Quenya, the high tongue of the Eldar, they are called the Valarokar. In the elder days, the Balrogs were not born as creatures of darkness. They were originally Maiar, the lesser Ainur who had once walked in the light of the timeless halls before the world was made. In their first forms, they were probably spirits of fire, bearing the light and glory of their creator, although this is more of what we want to think about how they were originally envisioned. Yet when Melkor, the mightiest of the Ainur, of the Valar, turned to darkness and defied the will of Eru Iluvatar, many of these lesser spirits were also drawn to his rebellious splendor. They were corrupted by his malice and so fell into shadow, becoming creatures of darkness and flame, bound to the will of Melkor forever, reborn and abominable, starkly different than their original spirit forms. In the First Age, Melkor gathered them after the fall of the two lambs and dwelt in the lands of Autumno. When his fortress was destroyed by the Valar, they fled and hid in the pits of Angband, awaiting their master's return later after the destruction of the two trees. In the early writings of Tolkien, it was said that they were many hundreds, perhaps even thousands of Balrogs, a host that rode forth with their Lord of War. Yet as the legendarium of Tolkien matured, the number dwindled until it was told that there were only a few, maybe 3 or perhaps only 7 at most, them being the mightiest and the most terrible of Melkor's servants. This change reflects the deepening of the mythology. As the Balrogs became rarer, they were also more powerful in the unfolding history of Middle-earth, for if there were hundreds or thousands of these, the fear and dread that one of these, found in Moria, would be diminished, and the dwarves with their thousands in strength could have probably fought it off and killed it, if supposedly there were hundreds or thousands of them in the beginning. But if there were just a few, then they were more special, and one can imagine that only with miraculous luck and a stroke of valor can one be brought down. So the Balrogs were ever at the forefront of Morgoth's wars against the elves and the Valar. They fought in the many battles of Beleriand, in the wars for the jewels. In one such battle called Dagor Nun Gilead, or the Battle under Stars, it took place before the creation of the sun and moon. The Noldor, led by Fëanor, won the battle and scattered Morgoth's armies. But, consumed by fury, Fëanor pursued them towards Angband with his own sons. But near Dor Daedaloth, he was ambushed by a host of Balrogs, and though he fought valiantly, he was wounded and ultimately defeated by Gothmog, the Lord of Balrogs, and this was the death of Fëanor. In the Nirnaeth Arnodead, the Battle of Unnumbered Tears, the Balrogs slaughtered countless elves and men, driving many to their doom. So the Balrog in our discussion today would have also been present through all these engagements. So they were also present at the fall of Gondolin, where their flames and whips of fire turned the city of the hidden elves to ruin. However, it was here that 2 of them also were slain, one by Ecthelion and another by Glorfindel, but at the cost of their own lives as well. Later, when Morgoth was finally defeated, the Balrogs fled and hid in deep places around the world. So of all the Balrogs, one is known above all others in the histories of the Third Age. He is named Durin's Bane. This fearsome creature, like his brethren, was one of the Maiar who had become ensnared by Morgoth's dark influence from time immemorial. For many ages he laid in darkness, hiding in the deep places of the world, until fate brought him forth once more. Durin's Bane found his way into the deeps of a section of the Misty Mountains after Morgoth was defeated, in the end of the First Age. This place would be later become the great dwarven kingdom called Khazad-dûm. How long he slept there no one can say, but for an age he remained in the bowels of the earth, buried beneath the stone and shadow. He was awakened in the year 1980 of the Third Age, when the dwarves, in their greed, delved too deep into the roots of the world, seeking mithril. In their mining they broke through a chasm of darkness where the Balrog had slumbered, and so they roused him from his ancient sleep. The Balrog was a creature of shadow and fire, with a great darkness that shrouded his form like a cloak, but within it burned a fire that none could quench. He wielded a great whip of many thongs, blazing with flames, and a blade that glowed with an inner fire. His body was tall and manlike in form, as per the writings. Yet in one instance Tolkien noted, "A fissure strode into the fissure, no more than a man high, yet terror seemed to go before it. They could see the furnace fire in its yellow eyes from afar. Its arms were very long, and it had a red tongue. Through the air it sprang over the fiery fissure." So we can presume that the movie's version, although impressive, was more embellished than what Tolkien had in mind, but still captured the essence of it being more or less a creature of shadow and flame. Yet in another statement, it was said that it stepped forward slowly onto the bridge, and suddenly it drew itself to a great height, and its wings were spread from wall to wall. And also in another statement, it was twice a man's height, so the size of the Balrog is highly debatable. And there is also the highly controversial subject on whether the Balrog had wings or not. The description of the Balrog in Moria from the Bridge of Khazad in the 5th chapter of the Fellowship of the Ring would explain it in favor of it having wings. There were two lines in particular. The first says, "His enemy halted again, facing him, and the shadow about it reached out like two vast wings." The second, "Suddenly it drew itself up to a great height, and its wings were spread from wall to wall." And on the arguments against the creature having wings, the most argued case is Gothmog and Durin's Bane falling from high up into chasms and the abyss. However, the counterclaim would be that they had been defeated and stricken down, and also that the wings were merely for show and intimidation rather than practical flight. Anyway, in 1980 of the Third Age, when the dwarves delved and mined too deeply for mithril into the mountain's rocks, the Balrog was awakened, and in its fury, it wreaked havoc and killed Durin VI, the king of Khazad. The following year, in 1981 of the Third Age, his son Nain I was also slain by the Balrog, and the dwarves were driven out of that place in terror and despair. The once great kingdom fell into darkness, and the halls of Khazad were filled with shadows, and was then forth called Moria, or the Black Pit. And so after driving the dwarves from their former kingdom, Durin's Bane did not hibernate again, but rather remained silent yet vigilant, as a sentinel of shadow in the deeps. It is said that although he was not present at the Battle of Azanubelzar in the year 2799 of the Third Age, the dwarves dared not venture into Moria, even through the gates, for they sensed his presence, and they dared not enter even after their victory against Azog and the orcs. And so for 1000 years into the Third Age, the Balrog would be silently active in Moria, and become acquainted with the tunnels delved by the nameless things below the misty mountains. 500 years later, in 2480 of the Third Age, as Sauron's shadow began to stretch again across Middle-earth, he commanded his orcs and goblins to establish secret strongholds throughout the misty mountains, seeking to secure control over all the mountain passes. Orcs in their large numbers began to infiltrate the tunnels and caverns of the mountains, fortifying them as bases from which they could harry travelers and block passages between the lands of Eriador and Rovanion. The Balrog tolerated the presence of the orcs and trolls, allowing them to make their lairs within the vast caverns of Moria, for they were also corrupted beings of Morgoth, and they respected and feared him. Thus they were kept to the outer halls and passages, leaving the deep places and dark recesses to Durin's Bane. So when the Fellowship of the Ring in 3019 of the Third Age dared to enter the mines of Moria, seeking a path through the misty mountains instead of Caradhras, they inadvertently got the attention of Durin's Bane. Sensing their presence, the Balrog came upon them, and seeking to destroy and consume them in flame. The Balrog might have been drawn to the power of the One Ring, or maybe to the presence of Gandalf the Grey, both of which had Maiar spirits within them. Or maybe it was just the fool of a Took. So after being pursued for a while, and Gandalf's spells of containment being easily broken by the creature, Gandalf stood alone against Durin's Bane upon the bridge of Khazad, shouting, "You cannot pass!" And he broke the bridge beneath the Balrog's feet. But as the Balrog fell, his whip lashed out, and Gandalf was drawn down with him into the dark chasm. There they battled long from the depths of Moria, through the tunnels of the nameless things, via the endless stairs to the peaks of Zirak-Zigil, where they fought amidst fire and lightning, until at last Gandalf cast it down and broke its body upon the mountainside, and him dying as well, but then re-sent back as Gandalf the White later on. Thus Durin's Bane, as is told, was slain, his form shattered and his fire extinguished. Yet whether a Balrog can truly die is a matter of debate, for they are spirits of the Ainur, and though their forms may be destroyed, their spirits could very well still endure. As for the other Balrogs, their fate is largely unknown. Some say they still lie buried in the deeps of the world, maybe in Mordor or other places where no light has ever shone. We do know that 3 of them have been slain, by Ecthelion, Glorfindel, and Gandalf the Grey. And therefore if we take the established theme of them only being 7 in number, then there would still exist 4 of them somewhere beneath the deep places of Middle-earth, or maybe sunk down below in the deeps along with Angband and Belerion before the Second Age. And as for whether Durin's Bane would have followed Sauron, it's a topic for a future video. Now if you like this video, then watch this other one too, and do check out our channel for other dragon, monster and xenomorph content. We might have things we haven't seen before. Like, subscribe, and we'll see you in the next video. Take care guys.